Let's get some more on what we're seeing there. Brian Shute joining us from the Australian Gold Fund. Brian, welcome back. Good to see you. So gold is on the march again. What are you seeing, particularly when you take a look at that chart? Is there a broad support base there? Are you expecting it to move higher from here?
Hi, Andrew. I'm glad to be here, and was really interested hearing Kai talk about his views on gold. And I largely agree with him in that gold is actually the pullback we saw in April and May. It seemed to have turned around, and it actually formed the base for the next rise. And we can see that along with how silver is performing, because silver is actually now approaching that critical $35 mark, which I've mentioned, I think, in my last 2 or 3 meetings, where I said I'm actually focusing on looking at what will happen to silver to also support whether gold is overstretched or whether it's moving in line with the longer term trend that we've seen in the last 2.5 years, where gold's been on a steady rise and it started turning parabolic last March. So I think we could probably see it break above 3,500 US dollars an ounce in the next month or two. And this is supported by the weak US dollar index, which is now further pulling back. And it looks like it will probably stay below 100 given the current mood in the markets with mixed business confidence and also still the global uncertainty as to whether China and the US are going to soften on their stance with the tariffs, or whether, as Kai also said, whether they're gonna play hardball. And as much as we can try and guess what President Trump and President Xi are going to do in the next 60 days or so, one thing that I'm pretty certain about is uncertainty remains, and there's a lot of unpredictability regarding how their trade teams are going to negotiate going forward.
And on top of that, Brian, of course, you do have that rising geopolitical risk once again, particularly with expectations that Russia is going to retaliate against Ukraine following some targeted attacks by Ukraine recently.
Yes, so we've seen a few global conflicts spark here and there with, recently you have fears about what's happening in Yemen and Iran, and the continual conflict between Israel and Gaza, and also between Russia, Ukraine, and India and Pakistan. My feeling is that while many expect that Russia could potentially escalate the conflict in retaliation to the strikes by Ukraine, we have seen recently that Russia and Ukraine are in talks, brokered partly by the US, about a potential de-escalation of the conflict and conversations about what's going to happen with the Donbass region, and what will Russia do with the territory that they have taken from Ukraine. So I'm actually on the unconventional side once again. I believe that there will probably be more, there'll be a de-escalation of the conflict going forward, because the US and the allies will probably weigh in and try to get them to negotiate rather than continue to exchange fire. So I could be wrong about this, but I believe the geopolitical factors that's acting on gold will probably be less than the economic pressures that are going to push gold higher as central banks look to be reducing interest rates in the next 6 to 12 months.
What are you seeing at an equity level, Brian, how those gold stocks, locally at least, have responded?
Well, the producers have actually given me quite a surprise earlier this week as the ASX Gold Index moved above 13,000 points, which was actually the highest we've seen since April 22nd. We saw Genesis Minerals break above $5, Regis Resources break above $5, Pantoro Gold above 350, Northern Stars back above 20. Evolution Mining is above 9. And I'm actually against saying that these companies have done well. Their operating margins are going to continue to improve as oil remains in the low 60s, high 50s. And but at the same time, I still hold to my view, as I've said in the last month and a half, that gold producers are moving towards an overvalued territory. I am waiting for the June quarter results to prove me wrong. I'm looking for the industry operating margin average at over 50% to support the current valuations. And based on my data, the March quarter average operating margin was about 46.5%. So they have moved ahead, and simply because there is a overwhelming amount of funds, like fund flows moving into these companies as people pay attention to gold producers. I'm currently taking some profits, and I've been suggesting my newsletter readers to also do the same. They still hold a significant portion of their portfolio in gold producers, but we're definitely reducing our exposure.
And just finally, heading back to silver, are you trying to up your exposure there then?
So silver, this is an interesting question because there's not many silver producers on the ASX. So if you buy silver companies at the moment, hoping for silver to break out, you're buying the explorers and you're buying companies which are highly speculative. And when I focus on silver, it's not so much about buying silver companies, but it's more, I consider silver the FOMO trade for the precious metal space. When silver does well and silver breaks out as it has in the last year, people start moving down the hierarchy from the producers to the developers and the explorers. We've seen some of the late stage developers do very well. Mika Gold, they've broken above 16 cents. We haven't seen that for a while. We also have seen Black Cat Syndicate, which is now starting to produce their, they actually broke up above $1 at one stage this year. I'm looking at the smaller end of town, the explorers, but very, very careful with looking at the company's balance sheets, looking at the exploration projects, whether those projects have compelling potential in terms of good drill results, a confirmed deposit, the ore grade looks good, and whether they're potentially economical. About half the 100 or so explorers and developers are still in the doldrums and are looking at very carefully scrutinizing these companies to see which ones might actually join the other half or so that have started to take off and they're trading 50% or above their recent lows in this cycle. So I'm very excited on this end because of where silver is heading.
Brian, great to get across what you're seeing in precious metals. Thanks for joining us from the Australian Gold Fund.
Thanks very much, Andrew, and God bless.
Thank you for watching my interview with Ausbiz. To learn more about our work, visit the Australian Gold Fund website. Also, check out Gold Hub Australia for live precious metals price quotes and insights. You can also sign up for our regular updates. And don't forget to visit the Ausbiz website. All our links are in the description. Please leave your comments and thoughts on where gold, silver, and the US dollar are heading below. Thank you very much. God bless.